It's week 4 of the chemistry of lasting love, the eternal spark. Well, I'm going to start out with a story from Mr. Harley's book, His Needs and Her Needs. And there was a farmer and his wife who came into the office to be counseled about divorce. Basically, there was no intimacy between them, and the husband was complaining about this. They could sit down and have talks and spend some time together, but she just wasn't interested in intimacy. And as he dug into their story and the things going on with them, the problem was repelling one another rather than attracting. There was no intimacy. The farmer came into the office. His body odor about knocked down the doctor. I mean, that's a thing that's a little hard not to notice. He was chewing tobacco with residue, brown residue in his teeth. His hair was dirty and uncombed. His clothes were dirty. I mean, can you stop and think if your spouse looked like that? What would you be thinking? And would you be very interested in being all cuddly with them? Well, as he talked with the couple, he started to realize the problem right away because it was right in front of him. Now, often people's troubles are not so easily to see. But as he talked to the farmer, he said, "Okay, well, I'm going to give you a few things that I want y'all to go home today and do. And when you do these things, I want you to come back in a couple of weeks and let's see how things are going. And then we'll take this from there." So he told the farmer, "I want you to shower twice a day. Because, as a farmer, uh, you come in from working early in the morning and you work all day long. You're dirty and sweaty and icky. So it's important to come home and, take a shower when you come in so you don't spread dirt and you're clean for dinner and that kind of stuff. And then also take a shower in the morning so you're super clean." He said, "Let her pick your clothes." Now, I can relate to this in the way that my husband has always let me pick his clothes, but lately he's been picking a few of his own. And of course, I like my picks better. So she's going to pick his clothes. And the doctor says, "I want you to brush your teeth." Yeah. And no tobacco. No tobacco. Shave and dress every morning before breakfast. Shave and dress every morning before breakfast. And here's what I want you to do as the wife. I want you then to make love with him every day for a week. I know, every man's a dream, right? Make love with him every day for a week. Well, I am sure that it was much easier at this point because now her husband is smelling good, looking good. Now, when they're having a conversation, she's not looking at brown gunk in his teeth and tobacco breath and icky, dirty hair and clothes, right? So, what do you think happens with that? Well, when they came back in to the doctor's office and they talked about it again, they were holding hands, sitting close, making goo goo eyes at each other. Why? Because they had refound their romantic love. That simple. One need that we're going to talk about today brought them back together. Now, this need is not a top need for everyone, and this was a gigantic, deep example. Like, how bad can it get? But everybody doesn't have this as a top need, but I think we all need it to an extent. Who could be interested in somebody dirty and stinky and icky every day? I just kind of doubt it. There might be somebody. Is that you? Are you laughing? All right. So, in this, attraction is the takeaway any particular need, any of the needs that we've been looking at, and you empty the love bank. And in this case, it was physical attractiveness. And as we're going to look at physical attractiveness, it comes in all different kinds of packages. And everybody's expectancy is different. We all want something different. But whenever you take away the physical attractiveness in this case, it's going to like affect the affection between the two people. And then that's definitely, she's not admiring or appreciating him because she really just doesn't want him too close. And so it's going to affect the intimacy. So physical attractiveness. Now, number six is physical appearance. And that can be any kind of thing. Like for this guy, it was personal hygiene and how he dressed. Sometimes it's our weight when it gets out of whack. And for, many people, weight counts or doesn't count. And so you kind of have to, pardon the pun, but weigh that between the two of you. And, makeup, how you fix your hair, what kind of clothes you wear. Some people have trouble with fragrances, so they're not going to wear anything smelly because it gives them a headache or makes them start sneezing or that kind of thing. But personal hygiene, how we dress, how we look, affects many of us and it affects our confidence. So sometimes physical appearance affects us personally for our confidence, but sometimes a spouse needs their spouse to look their best. And that doesn't mean they're the most attractive or most fashionable person in the room or the most handsome person in the room. It just means, hey, they fell in love with you for who you are, right? But physical appearance and taking care of yourself and looking your best makes a difference for some people. Now, I have a workshop. It is called Rediscover Your Spouse. And it just continues on with the thing of how to be a better spouse and understand the one you're with. Because right now we're looking at the needs, the 10 needs. And this is the fourth week in that. But another thing that makes a big difference, you hear me talk about personality styles a whole lot. Literally, there are couples that repel each other. One's super critical and that crushes the other person. One person refuses to listen, and the person who needs to share their heart and share themselves, that crushes them because it seems like your spouse isn't interested. But the bottom line is once you start to understand our DNA behavior makeup and that we're all different, we all have different things we expect from one another, different things we're good at. And it's literally about how you think. You think differently. Think about all those arguments. It's because you think differently. And then we act differently. And we want our spouse to act like we act, and that's probably not going to happen. And then we respond differently. Some people respond with a lot of patience, and some people respond with sarcasm and a lot of impatience. Do you see where I'm going with that? And once you begin to understand each other, you learn not to expect your spouse to be just like you. Have you been doing that? Expecting your spouse to want the same things as you do, act like you do? You know, the thing is, as two people in a marriage and you bring in different things, even if you're kind of opposite, if you can learn how not to crush your spouse with your strong points, you can learn to get along better, respect each other's differences, and soften up around the hard edges that are separating you. And that's the Rediscover Your Spouse workshop. Number seven in this today is financial support. Number seven out of the 10, financial support. If your spouse lost their job right before the wedding, would you still marry them? Do you expect them to be the sole provider? That's in years and years ago, men were usually always the sole provider, and the woman was the homemaker, and she took care of the kids and the home and planning, and maybe she wrote bills or maybe he wrote bills, but they kind of divided up by the domestic part of their life, which is a big part, and the financial part of their life. So, do you expect your spouse to be the sole supporter? Or do you expect to share expenses? And that goes on men's side and women. Some women like to work. Some women rather work than be home with the kids all the time. Some have to work. And most of the time still, men, unless he's a great Mr. Mom, right? Uh, you know, provide for their family. I'm a little old fashioned still, and I like that my husband provides for our family, and when I have worked, I make extra money for us, and we put all our money together. But people do it in all different ways. A budget is a necessary good. Plus, couples spend money differently. This is a place of a lot of arguments. Money, finances, how you spend, how you save, how you invest. You come from different families, and my mom did this, my dad did that. And you have to come together and have a discussion and a conversation and decide what is best for the two of you. Because we all leave our mom and dad. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for raising us well and giving us wings to fly. We all leave our mom and dad, we leave our families for whatever it was, good or bad, and then we come forward. We have to decide financially, what do we want? And we have to be a little bendable. Our spouse may be very different. So, how can you work that out? A budget is a necessary good. Otherwise, uh, if you have a house, you're losing your house. You can't pay your bills. There's a lot of frustration and stress, and that's never good for any relationship. First, there is a needs budget, necessities of your life, things that keep you healthy, add to your comfort, things you must have. What? Food, shelter, water, right? Then there are the wants budget, cost of your needs and your wants, and you have to be realistic. So you have to put the two of those together. What do I need? What do we need to survive? And then what do we want? What do I want most? What does my husband want most? What's most important, to them? And how much money, because we have a budget, can we spend on this? And then three, the affordable budget. So you put all this together. And I have to say, I love Dave Ramsey. And in the month of February, I have a young woman who's going to share how Dave Ramsey changed her marriage because they got their finances in order. So the affordable budget, your income first takes care of the needs budget and then extends to the wants budget of realistic pleasures. Your income covers all your expenses. It balances monthly. If you don't learn to do this, this alone will cause great havoc in your relationship. Taking care of financial needs gives security. I mean, you got to know you could pay your bills. And hey, I've been around a long time. So we had several different years where we overspent and then we had to pay back. And so then we had to pinch every penny so that we could pay back what we had already money that we had already enjoyed doing something or fixing something, whatever it might be. A budget is a necessary good. Plus, couples spend differently. You got to talk about that. The eighth one is domestic support. This is in every marriage because everybody has somewhere they live, somewhere they eat, somewhere they sleep, and you got to keep that running well. Not only shopping for groceries, cooking, washing, childcare, household chores, but it's important to make an organized, welcoming, loving home, a great place to live and thrive. You know what? The old-fashioned name for this, and it still is the name, a homemaker. Now, I've had people make fun when you said a homemaker. It's like I'm politically incorrect saying the word homemaker, but let's think about it. A homemaker is the person who is at home and, you know, keeps it clean and organized, takes care of the kids, shops for groceries, decides on meals. I know we all like to eat, right? And remember earlier, one of the big things for families and couples is to sit down and eat dinner together. We got to have the food, you got to have the menu. And I have to say, I've been a homemaker all these years. I also taught dance. I was a Mary Kay sales director, and now, I'm the host of the Extraordinary Marriage podcast. And, I coach people one on one who need help, and I do workshops online and in church groups for couples. But I'm still a homemaker. And when things get disorganized and we get too busy, there's no organization, there's no meals, there's no groceries to eat, the bills don't get paid, all these different things. A homemaker is a very important person, just as important as that person who makes a living and brings home the paycheck. So whether you do it together or one person does it, whether that's finances that we just looked at or whether that is domestic support. You see the importance of both? The chemistry of lasting love, helping your spouse with household responsibilities, only has maximum impact if domestic support is one of their top needs. Now, domestic support is not on the total high of my needs, but let me tell you, I sure appreciate it when my husband lends a hand. So typically, I do most of it, but when needed and when he has time, he lends a hand, and that definitely deposits into the love bank. Remember making the top five need meeting the top net bleh, sorry. Remember meeting the top five needs of your spouse. Deposits into your love bank. And remember that not meeting the top five needs of your spouse will withdraw from your love bank. Remember, you'll want to keep your love bank full because that is feeding, nurturing your romantic love. An empty bank, picture a glass of, you got a jar change, and now that jar change, it's all gone. Not a quarter's left, not a penny's left. An empty bank closes. And we don't want that to happen to our relationship. Uneven distribution creates overwhelm and frustration. So here we are at our emotional bank account. Remember that there's a crisis when there is overwhelm, if somebody's being underappreciated, if there's overspending, dishonesty or not doing your part, there is a crisis. Your love bank is getting emptied out until one day there is nothing and your relationship falls apart. But if you're constantly making deposits into that love bank, good grooming, you have a spending plan, you respect your spouse and how you each have decided to spend, helping out when needed. These things deposit into your love bank. All right, so next week, we're going to finish this off. It'll be the fifth week. We're going to look at incompatibility to irresistibility. We're going to list on our homework this week. I want you to list his responsibilities around the house. This nothing to do with what you get paid for. List her responsibilities and talk about them. And does there need to be a rebalance in that? Is one person doing everything, especially if two people are working and contributing to the budget? So, how could you help your partner? Now, what have you learned so far about the differences in the needs of you and your spouse? And have you printed your uh, the chemistry of long-lasting love bonus? And you find that at theextraordinarymarriage.com needs. All right. So next week we're going from incompatible to irresistible because I know you have printed your stuff, you filled it out, you and your spouse have taken a dinner date night at your own kitchen table and y'all are talking about this. I can't wait to hear the difference that it's making for you. Um, this simple thing of paying attention to one another's needs.